That's fine.
Mama. Mama. Mama.
Yeah? All right, did you make a mess? Yes. Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel for a cozy video. It is kind of gloomy outside and I figured let's start up our sourdough starter again. I've actually been thinking about this for about a week and I just need to get on it because it could have already been matured by now. It does take some time to get a sourdough starter going, but it is totally doable and easy to do on your own. I have followed recipes online in the past. Sometimes they feel a little bit confusing for me, so let me show you the book that I am following this time around, and for some reason, reading it the way the author has it laid out is so easy. This is the book that I am following. It's called New World Sourdough. I've never heard of this author before, Brian Ford. He has a website right there, but I did get this from the library, and it tells you all about how to make a sourdough starter. I know it seems a little bit intimidating, but if you have come to this video, you've come to the right place. We are going to make a successful sourdough starter together. Mine usually takes 7 days to get started. In the book, he says 5 days. I think that totally depends on which climate you live in, but we're pretty cold over here. So let's get into it. Day 2, you guys, let's get this started. So I like to start with a clean jar. I just have 2 of these Weck jars here and I really like them. And then I'm starting with the sourdough starter that we started yesterday, which really doesn't have a lot going on by now. You guys can kind of tell. I mean, it's like coagulated a little bit, if that's even the right word that I'm thinking of, but there's no bubbles going on, not really much happening here, and that's totally normal. It's not even smelling sourish yet. It shouldn't be. So we are going to get into mixing this. All I'm taking is 100 grams of the sourdough starter, and then we're going to do 100 grams of filtered lukewarm water and 100 grams of all-purpose flour. I have tried this with other flours as well. It's worked quite well for me. I know some people are very picky on this, but you can see how like the sourdough starter is kind of it's almost like when you're making bread and it turns into a dough, kind of like that. That's how it's going to look on the first day. But with the different flours and stuff like I was talking about, I've used bread flour in the past, whole wheat flour, and both of those have worked. I've used a combination of all 3 of them with the all-purpose flour as well, and that's worked well. I've also done a gluten-free sourdough starter. That is all on my Instagram. The gluten-free sourdough starter worked perfectly well with just brown rice flour. So we're mixing in our water here, and I'm being really exact. After a while, you get used to how much you need, and not to say that you shouldn't still measure it out. I still do measure it out, but you can go a lot faster than this. I am literally moving as slow as a turtle right now. And then you want to mix it all together, and you want to make sure that you don't see any flour clumps at the end of this. So you want to mix it really well, just like that. You see how there's no dry flour in there? Perfect. You can leave it covered, uncovered, whatever you want to do. I usually do it like slightly covered and just kind of off, like the lid off just a little bit so it has a little bit of airflow to it. And then you want to put it in a warm spot, which is why it was back near my oven. Okay, so look, this is day 3, and we're starting to see some more bubbles in there. That is a good sign. That means everything is starting to work together. We're starting to create that bacteria, and you can see I'm trying to show you like where it rose to. It didn't really rise too much this day, but it's a little watery. Can you see how it's a little bit more like pourable this day rather than the doughiness that I had yesterday? That's because it is hungry. When it is a little bit more watery, that means your sourdough starter is hungry. So you want to get on feeding it. So again, what we're going to be doing to feed this is literally 100 grams of sourdough starter. And like, honestly, do you need to be exact as I'm being right here? No, this is ridiculous. I'm taking way too long. 100 grams of sourdough starter, 100 grams of lukewarm filtered water. You really want to make sure it's filtered because you don't want any chlorine in it. Chlorine will kill it real quick. And so, oh, I hope I'm thinking of the right chemical. This pregnancy brain is messing with me, you guys. I'm either thinking of fluoride or chlorine, but that can be common in your tap water. So you want to make sure it's filtered. That's all I'm trying to tell you, is that we don't want to kill off the good bacteria in this sourdough starter. So filtered water is going to be the best, and then 100 grams of the flour. It's literally the same thing. We're doing the exact same thing every single day. And it's very simple, but it does take time. Now, once your sourdough starter is established, it's going to be very easy to maintain. It's not an everyday sort of thing unless you want to bake with it every day. And I, of course, have weeks like that where I am baking with it every day, but typically the way I use my sourdough starter is I actually just keep it in the fridge once it's established and mature, and I will feed it like, I don't know, once a week, sometimes once every 3 weeks. Okay. Listen, we don't have a lot of time for things like that over here. But whenever I do my sourdough starter, I feed it. I'll take it out of the fridge. Okay. Let it come to room temperature a little bit. I have fed it like right before it goes into the fridge, so it kind of has time to like rise after it comes out of the fridge, and then I will use it in my baked goods. And it's super easy, super low maintenance, and you can keep it for years if you don't let yours go moldy like I did mine. The main mistake that I made on mine when I let it go moldy is I actually wasn't cleaning the jar enough. I kept seeing people on Instagram having like these crusty jars. Do not do that. I wasted a perfectly good starter because it was moldy. And not only did I waste a perfectly good starter, but when I was like 5 weeks pregnant, I got the most awful food poisoning that I have ever had. It was horrible. I actually thought that I was possibly miscarrying just because I was in so much pain. And I don't say that lightly. I was very worried. But it turns out that it was just food poisoning because I had a moldy sourdough starter and didn't realize it. So anyways, just making this on day 4, putting it back in our warm spot. I had some oil on the stove that was needing to cool down before I could wipe it out. Anyway, okay, we're moving on to day 5. So this is the day that in the book that he says it should be totally ready to go. Mine was not ready on day 5 like I suspected. And this one actually took me a lot longer to get established. I think it was like 12 days or something like that. If yours takes longer, it's okay. Just keep with the process. I'm only feeding it once a day at night, which was a lot easier for me. The first time that I made a sourdough starter, I did it twice a day. And to be honest with you, it still took the same amount of time. It took about 12 days. And I was wasting more product, and I felt like I wasn't getting the results as quickly. So anyway, I'm only feeding it once a day. You can do whatever you want. If you live in a warmer climate, you may need to feed it twice a day. I'm in a colder climate and it's wintertime. So here we are feeding it once a day. We're going to scrape down those sides and get it set off. This is our pantry. So I wanted to show you guys my flour setup. Back when I was making sourdough a ton, this is what I had set up and I love it. So this is all-purpose flour that I've been using. I mentioned that to you guys. I have bread flour right there, rolled oats, and then over here I have brown rice, but I'll just dump this back in here. And then I put these Gamma Seal lids on so that it stays fresh, and they're easy to open and kind of close. Apparently, I am having trouble doing it one-handed while trying to look in the camera. Get it on there tight. You can even put these on rollers, but I have no problem scooting them across the floor. They're not like marking anything up. I get the buckets from Tractor Supply. I think they were $5 a piece. And then these lids were actually like 10 a piece or something, the more expensive part. But they'll last you forever. So I'll just shove that right in there. Good to go. So I can just tell by the starter that it's not completely matured yet. I know in the book it says like 5 days. My previous ones have never taken 5 days. They've always taken more than 5 days. So I'm gonna go until at least like day 7 or 8. If you live in a colder climate and it's winter when you're doing this, which it is winter when I'm doing this and I live in a colder climate, then you may need some extra time. That's why I put it by the stove, to keep it just a little bit warmer than what the house runs, because it needs, like, it's going to really thrive in that warmer climate, right? That's when all kinds of bacteria loves to grow. Anywhoosie, we're gonna keep going, even though this is, I think I just did day 5. I have been waiting so long to show you what a mature sourdough starter looks like. Ignore the mess on the counter because I was not expecting it to be ready today. I'm already getting started on making some bread here, but see how it's bubbly? Super bubbly. Look at that stretch that you see in there. It doesn't want to focus on it. So, as you can see, I've already used quite a bit of this in my bread, but this is where my starting line was, and it rose all the way to this top line where you see it didn't stop growing. It was still growing, but I decided to already go ahead and use it. You'll know it's ready when you pour some water into a bowl, then you pour this on top and it'll float right to the top. I've been keeping it in the oven with the oven off, but just the oven light on. And you can see this one's actually getting a little bit hungry because it's foaming at the top, but you can see how much it's risen. Once it gets stronger and stronger, it's going to rise all the way and probably push that top off, but that's looking pretty good for now for an early but mature sourdough starter. You can bake with this now. And this is what it looks like when you bake with your sourdough starter. So of course mine is like not super mature, so the rise would be even more on a more mature starter, but just as you build it up over time, over the next couple months, years, whatever, it gets stronger and stronger and gives you that real good lift. But this bread is so good, I wish you guys could smell it in person.